Most Minecraft players believe farms only work if they stand nearby or AFK in one spot. They rely on chunk loaders or staying online nearby to keep farms ticking. But 1.5 flip that logic. Mojang introduced a smarter chunk ticking system that lets some farms work even if you're far away. No AFK required. Confused? Don't worry. I researched everything, tested the facts, and busted myths about chunk loaders, decorated pots, nether portal mechanics, and more. By the end, you'll know exactly what changed, which farms are broken or better, and how to build your world smart in one. Let's get started. What is chunk loading and why it always matters? Chunk loading is basically Minecraft's way of deciding which parts of the world are active, where the game keeps running mechanics like crops growing, mobs spawning, redstone circuits working, and entities moving. The world is split into 16 by 16 block chunks, and only chunks that are loaded by a player or forced by the game tick or update regularly. Without chunk loading, farms stop working because crops won't grow, iron golems won't spawn or die, mobs freeze in place, and redstone clocks stop. So chunk loading is critical for automation. Before the update, if you built an iron farm or a sugarcane farm far away, and no player was nearby, the chunk wouldn't load, so your farm stopped working completely. That's why players invented chunk loaders, tricking the game into keeping chunks active with things like nether portals, minecarts running on redstone clocks, and floating ender pearls. For example, players built nether portal chunk loaders where a minecart with a hopper would constantly cycle, preventing the chunk from unloading. This kept their farms running even if they left the area. Iron farms depend on villager and golem mechanics ticking. Crop farms depend on random ticks to grow crops. Mob farms depend on spawning mechanics and mob AI ticking. Without chunk loading, none of these run if no player is nearby. But here's the twist. Minecraft 1.21.5 completely changed how chunk loading works in the background, especially how entity ticking happens, which means farms might run differently now. But the second point is what changed in Minecraft 1.21.5 with chunk loading. The big change is the introduction of regional entity ticking. Instead of requiring full chunk loading, Minecraft now allows certain entities to tick and update even if the chunk isn't fully loaded. But this only applies to certain key entities like villagers, iron golems, and minecarts. This means that the simulation or the behavior of these entities can happen even if the player is far away and the chunk isn't fully loaded. For example, in an iron farm, the villagers and iron golems can still update, spawn, and interact without the chunk being fully loaded by the player. So your iron farm's golems can spawn and die even if you're far away. This allows farms to work partially without traditional AFK chunk loader setups. Iron farms benefit heavily. You don't need to stand right next to the farm to keep iron golems spawning. Villager crop farms can continue their crop growth because villagers still tick. However, farms that require mob spawning, like gold farms with pigmen or XP farms, may not fully work since those require full chunk loading. There was confusion about whether chunk loaders still work or if farms now run automatically. The truth is some farms work better with the update, but chunk loaders are still relevant for farms needing full chunk loading like pigmen farms or redstone contraptions. But does this mean you can just walk away and all your farms will work perfectly? The answer is, not quite. The difference is subtle but important. Fourth point is, can chunk loading overload your PC or crash the server? Many players worry that if farms keep ticking far away, it will increase lag, overload CPU, or crash servers. But Minecraft's new system is designed to be smart and optimized. It only ticks essential entities and pauses or unloads unnecessary chunks or entities. Application: if you have many farms spread across your world, Minecraft won't tick all chunks fully, only parts important to active entities like villagers, golems, and minecarts. It prevents your PC from overloading by skipping unnecessary ticks. Your iron farm might keep ticking far away without overloading your system. Unnecessary chunks far away that don't contain active entities will remain unloaded or paused. Some players thought this update would cause huge lag because of chunk loaders working without AFK, but it actually improves performance by reducing full chunk load requirements. Knowing this, what exactly works now? Which farms should you trust with the new system, and which still need old chunk loader tricks? Which farms work now, and which still need chunk loaders? Here's the practical breakdown for your farms. Iron farms work well now because villagers and iron golems tick thanks to the new entity ticking system. Villager crop farms also work better because villagers still update. Gold farms, nether pigmen need full chunk loading, so chunk loaders or AFK setups still required. XP farms, mob spawners need full chunk loading or player nearby. Redstone contraptions work if within fully loaded chunks but might not run well if chunk isn't fully loaded. Build your base and farms around this knowledge. Use new mechanics to reduce AFK time and chunk loader reliance for iron and villager farms. Keep old chunk loader setups for gold farms and XP farms. You can build iron farms high up at Y equals 150 without worrying about chunk loading fully. Villagers/golems still tick. Sugarcane farms and other crop farms may need chunk loading or AFK presence because they rely on random block ticks. Gold farms in the nether require chunk loaders. There was confusion about decorated pots or other blocks ticking chunks. Those don't count as chunk loaders. Only entity ticking counts for this new system. So, what if your base is far away from spawn chunks or you build farms thousands of blocks out? What happens then? Final truth: what works, what doesn't, and what to change now. Don't throw away your chunk loaders yet, some farms still need them. But the update means you can optimize your farms, reduce AFK time, and build more efficient setups relying on villager/golem ticking. Application: focus on villager-based farms for AFK-free automation. Keep chunk loaders for farms that need full chunk simulation. Test your farms with and without chunk loaders to see performance differences. Remember, the chunk loader glitch with nether portals and minecarts isn't officially patched but may not be reliable or consistent. It's not a guaranteed chunk loader. Decorated pots and other blocks do not act as chunk loaders, they just tick entities inside their chunk. Build your sugarcane or crop farms near spawn or use chunk loaders. Iron farms can be built more flexibly, even far from the player. Gold farms still require old chunk loader setups or staying AFK nearby. Minecraft 1.21.5 is a mindset shift. It's about smarter, more efficient farming, not brute force chunk loading. Q&A: all the confusions and important questions you had about chunk loading during research and our deep discussion. Many small but crucial questions popped up around chunk loading. These questions matter because Minecraft's mechanics are complex and sometimes contradictory, especially with new updates like 1.21.5. Let's clear up every confusion so you know exactly how your farms and chunks behave now. Q1. Does throwing an ender pearl on water or over soul sand keep chunks loaded? Answer: no. Ender pearls do not keep chunks loaded. When you throw an ender pearl, it travels through chunks but does not cause those chunks to tick or stay loaded. The chunk loading system requires active ticking entities like villagers or minecarts moving continuously, not one-time moving items like pearls. Q2. Do decorated pots or similar blocks keep chunks loaded? Answer: no. Decorative blocks like pots, paintings, or other static blocks do not cause chunk loading or ticking. Only entities that require processing by the game's tick system keep chunks active. This means your chunk loader cannot rely on such blocks. Q3. What happens if I build a chunk loader base at a high Y level, say Y equals 150, before and after 1.21.5? Answer: before 1.21.5, chunk loading relied heavily on old chunk loaders and AFK setups to keep chunks ticking anywhere, even at high Y levels. After 1.21.5, Minecraft's new regional entity ticking means partial ticking can happen farther away, but full chunk loading still depends on your chunk loader design. So building at Y equals 150 is fine, but chunk loading mechanics depend more on entity presence than just location now.
Q4. Is a chunk loader glitch with nether portal still reliable in 1.21.5? Answer: the old nether portal chunk loader glitch has become unreliable or patched in many cases with 1.21.5. The update focuses on smarter entity ticking rather than brute force chunk loading tricks, so don't fully rely on old glitch-based chunk loaders anymore. Q5. Will farms 1000 blocks away from spawn chunks at coordinates like 1400, 100, -1088 keep running automatically? Answer: no. Spawn chunks, roughly around coordinates 0 to 128, are always loaded, but chunks far from spawn need chunk loading methods or the new partial ticking to keep farms working. Some farms like villager iron farms might still work with entity ticking, but typical crop or sugarcane farms won't grow unless the chunk is fully loaded or you're nearby. Q6. Does chunk loading cause PC or server lag, or crash due to overload? Answer: no. Minecraft's 1.21.5 chunk loading system is optimized to partially tick necessary entities only. It pauses inactive chunks to save memory and CPU. This means it's less likely to cause lag than older chunk loader spam. However, loading dozens of active chunks at once can still stress your system. Q7. If I walk away from my farms, do they keep ticking automatically? Answer: only some aspects keep ticking. Villager and iron farms might still work partially due to regional entity ticking, but farms relying on full mob spawning, random block ticks, for crops, or redstone usually stop unless chunk loaded by other methods or the player is nearby. These questions clear up the most confusing parts about chunk loading in Minecraft 1.21.5. Knowing these answers helps you plan better farms and avoid wasted time on outdated chunk loading tricks. But if you thought this was complicated, wait until we talk about how to design farms that actually work best with this new system.
The fourth question is not entirely true. In Minecraft 1.5, the previously used chunk loader method exploiting nether portals has been fixed by Mojang, which broke that specific chunk loader design. However, this doesn't mean chunk loaders no longer exist, they have just changed, and players have found alternative methods, such as using powered rails with minecarts, to keep chunks loaded effectively. Additionally, farms built far away from the spawn point, generally beyond 1000 blocks, still require chunk loaders to keep ticking and functioning properly. Without a chunk loader, farms that rely on constant updates, such as mob farms or complex mechanisms, will not work correctly at such distances, even with the new update's entity ticking improvements. On the other hand, in loaded chunks, some automatic processes continue working naturally. For example, crops including sugarcane will grow automatically, and redstone mechanisms such as pistons and sugarcane farms will function normally without needing the player nearby. At last I say, while the chunk loading exploit has been fixed, chunk loaders remain essential for keeping farms running far from spawn, and some processes like crop growth and redstone will continue to work automatically in loaded chunks. Final truth and what you should do now: don't rush to remove all chunk loaders just because a part of the system changed. Some farms, especially those far from spawn or those that rely on mob spawning and redstone, still depend on being force loaded. The update didn't kill chunk loading, it changed how you should think about it. If you're building iron farms, crop farms, or villager-based systems, you can now take advantage of entity ticking improvements and reduce the use of older, glitchy chunk loaders. But if your farms are more than 1,000 blocks from spawn, or involve random tick crops like bamboo, kelp, or sugarcane, chunk loaders are still essential to keep those areas active when you're not nearby. This update is less about removing AFK farming completely and more about optimizing your world. It rewards clever design over brute force solutions like AFK machines or portal-based chunk loaders. Use the new mechanics to make smarter farms that are more efficient and better for your server or single-player performance. I'm human. I also make mistakes. If you find anything that seems incorrect or confusing, please highlight it in the comments. And if you have any questions about chunk loading or how this update affects your farms, ask below. I'll feature your questions and give clear answers in the next video as a full Q&A on this topic.